Welcome to the Wellbeing Podcast, where every episode is a step toward a healthier, happier you. Today, we're diving deep into something I think we all struggle with. Forgiving ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like those moments when you just can't shake off the memory of a mistake.
For sure.
Yeah. We're going to tackle that head on today. We'll uncover why it's so crucial for our well-being.
And
More importantly, how to actually let go of that stuff.
the how-to is key.
Because, let's be honest, haven't we all been there?
I think we have.
To guide us today, we have excerpts from this awesome guide on self-forgiveness and some surprising insights on parental guilt, too.
Well, what's fascinating is that self-forgiveness often feels tougher than forgiving someone else.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like we hold ourselves to these impossible standards, right?
Yeah,
And those thoughts of like, I should have known better can really eat away at you.
totally. It's like we're stuck replaying the same guilt trip over and over again.
Yeah.
Before we get to the how-tos, I'm curious, why does self-forgiveness even matter so much? We know guilt feels awful,
Yeah.
but like, what's the real impact on our lives?
The impact is huge, actually. Research has linked unresolved guilt to a whole bunch of negative stuff like stress, anxiety, even depression.
Oh, wow.
But here's the flip side. Studies have shown that self-forgiveness is like a superpower for well-being.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's connected to higher self-esteem, better mental health, and even stronger relationships.
So it's not just about feeling better in the moment. It's like setting the stage for a happier life overall.
Totally.
But I think we need to address the elephant in the room here.
Yeah.
Because some people might think forgiving themselves means they're excusing bad behavior.
Right.
Like, if I forgive myself, doesn't that make it okay?
That's a really common worry.
Yeah.
And it's crucial to understand this. Self-forgiveness isn't about condoning harmful actions.
Okay.
It's not saying what you did was right. It's acknowledging you're human, capable of making mistakes. Right.
And more importantly, it's about choosing to learn and move forward with more wisdom and compassion.
I like that. So, okay, self-forgiveness is important. It's backed by science.
Yeah.
And it's not about letting ourselves off the hook. But
Right.
how do we actually do it? It feels so much easier said than done.
Yeah, you're right. It's not a simple switch to flip. It's a process. And thankfully, there are frameworks to help us. One I find helpful is Dr. Worthington's REACH model.
Okay.
It was originally designed for forgiving others, but it works amazingly well for self-forgiveness too.
This our REACH model sounds intriguing. I'm curious, what are the steps involved?
So the first step is recall. It's about honestly remembering the event or action you want to forgive yourself for.
Yeah.
Be specific about what happened and its impact. No exaggerating or downplaying. So,
It's about confronting the truth head on.
yes.
No sugarcoating. Or beating ourselves up. Exactly. The next step is where it gets really interesting. It's called empathize. Think back to that time. You made a decision you regret. Now, put yourself back in that moment. What were you feeling? What pressures were you facing? This step is about understanding the context of your past mistakes. Were you acting out of fear, stress, or maybe just not knowing any better? I mean, haven't we all been there?
Oh, yeah. I love that. It's so easy to judge our past selves based on what we know now. But if we can put ourselves back in those shoes, it creates more understanding and compassion for the person we were then.
Absolutely. And that leads us beautifully to altruistic forgiveness. Think about it. Everyone makes mistakes, right?
Yep.
It's part of being human. So in this step, we acknowledge that shared humanity and extend to ourselves the same kindness we'd offer a friend struggling with guilt.
Oh, that's interesting.
Imagine a friend beating themselves up over a mistake. You'd probably remind them they're human, right?
For sure.
Oh. It's time to offer ourselves that same grace.
It's like replacing that inner critic with a compassionate friend. Someone who gets it.
Exactly. Now, the fourth step is where we make it real. It's called commit. This is about consciously deciding to forgive yourself. You can do something symbolic, like writing a letter of forgiveness to yourself, or simply make a firm internal commitment to let go of the guilt.
So, it's like taking that intention and turning it into concrete action, making it official.
Yes. And finally, the last step is hold on. Because here's the reality. Those feelings of guilt might sneak back in even after we've committed to forgiveness.
Yeah.
Hold on is about acknowledging that it's okay for those feelings to pop up. But we don't have to let them control us. We can gently remind ourselves of our commitment to forgiveness.
Yeah.
And keep moving forward.
So it's a journey, not a destination.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it requires a lot of patience and self-compassion, especially when those guilty feelings try to creep back in.
It absolutely does. But trust me, the rewards are well worth the effort. Now, I know we've covered the why and the framework, but let's get practical.
You're reading my mind. Because understanding the theory is one thing, but actually knowing what to do, can feel overwhelming.
Exactly. So, let's break down some steps you can take right now to start practicing self-forgiveness. Ready to dive in?
Absolutely. Let's do this. Where do we begin?
The first step might seem obvious, but it's crucial. Acknowledge the mistake. No sweeping things under the rug here. Think about a mistake you'd like to forgive yourself for. Now, be honest with yourself about what happened and the impact it had, no matter how uncomfortable it feels.
So it's about owning up to our actions, even if it's tough.
Precisely. Once you've acknowledged the mistake, it's time to understand the context. This is where you become a detective of your own life. Take a step back and reflect on the factors that led to your actions or decisions. Were you operating with limited knowledge, under a ton of pressure? Were there external factors you couldn't control?
I like this step. It's like we're separating the action from our worth as a person.
Yes. And that leads us perfectly to the next step, which is all about self-compassion. Remember how we talked about treating ourselves like we treat a friend going through the same thing? This is where we put that into practice. Instead of beating ourselves up with negative self-talk, we choose gentleness and encouragement. We remind ourselves that we're human, doing our best, and worthy of love and forgiveness, mistakes and all.
It's like trading that harsh inner critic for a cheerleader who's always in our corner.
Exactly. Now, the next step isn't always possible or appropriate, but when it is, it can be incredibly healing. Apologizing and making amends. If your actions hurt others, a sincere apology can go a long way in repairing those relationships and bringing closure for everyone involved.
It's about taking responsibility and showing those we hurt that we genuinely regret our actions and want to make things right.
Absolutely. Now, even if apologizing isn't possible, the next step is crucial. Learn and grow from the experience. Ask yourself, what can I take away from this? What did this teach me about myself and my choices? How can I use this to make better decisions going forward?
It's like turning those mistakes into valuable lessons that shape our future.
Precisely. And finally, the last step is to let go. This is about releasing all those negative emotions, the guilt, the shame that are tied to the mistake. Think about what helps you process and release difficult emotions. It could be journaling, meditation, talking to a therapist, or anything that helps you find peace.
So it's like giving ourselves permission to move on unburdened by the past.
Exactly. And with that, we've covered some powerful steps you can take to start cultivating self-forgiveness. But I know there's one area where self-blame can be particularly intense, and that's parental guilt.
So tell me about it. We all strive to be the best parents we can be, but we're human, we mess up, and that guilt can feel so heavy.
It absolutely can, and our source dives into this specific challenge in a really insightful way. One key point is differentiating between healthy guilt and destructive guilt.
Okay, I'm all ears. What's the difference?
Healthy guilt is that feeling of remorse we get. When we realize our actions have actually caused harm, it's a natural response that motivates us to make amends and do better. But destructive guilt, that's a different beast. It's rooted in unrealistic self-blame and taking on way too much responsibility for our children's lives. It's that nagging voice saying, I should have done more, been more, prevented every little challenge they face.
So it's like knowing when guilt is a helpful signal to course correct.
Yeah.
Versus when it's just a toxic cycle of self-blame holding us back.
Exactly. And the source highlights some red flags for unhealthy parental guilt. Things like avoiding other parents, overspending on adult children, struggling to let them solve their own problems. Sound familiar?
Oh, big time. I think many parents have been there.
For sure. And remember, these behaviors often come from a good place. Love and a desire to protect our kids.
Yeah.
But sometimes that love can backfire.
So, if we see these patterns in ourselves, what can we do? How do we start letting go of that destructive guilt?
The source offers some great advice. First, face it head on. Don't ignore or suppress it. Acknowledge the guilt, explore its roots, and consider therapy to process any past traumas that might be fueling it.
So it's about being honest with ourselves and seeking support when needed.
Yes. Another key piece is making amends where possible. If you've realized you've harmed your children, a sincere apology can be a powerful step toward healing.
But I guess it's important to remember that an apology doesn't erase the past and doesn't guarantee forgiveness from our children. It's about taking responsibility and expressing genuine remorse.
You got it. And just as crucial is avoiding the trap of penance. Making amends is one thing, but constantly trying to overcompensate for past mistakes can actually be harmful.
Right.
It creates an unhealthy dynamic where our children feel pressured to reassure us or downplay their struggles.
So it's finding that balance between owning our mistakes and giving our kids the space to live their lives.
Exactly. And lastly, the source encourages us to embrace imperfection, both ours and our children's. We're all human. We all make mistakes. And that's okay. Trying to be the perfect parent sets everyone up for failure and creates unrealistic expectations.
It's about letting go of the pressure to be perfect and accepting the messy, beautiful reality of family life.
Perfectly put. And with that, we've explored some valuable insights on the unique challenge of parental guilt. But I think it's important to remember that self-forgiveness is a journey, not a destination.
Absolutely. There will be ups and downs, moments of clarity, and moments of doubt, but the important thing is to keep practicing, keep learning, and keep extending compassion to ourselves.
Beautifully said. Self-forgiveness is a process, and the more we practice, the easier it becomes. Now, I think it's time to take a moment to reflect on what we've discussed so far.
Sounds good to me. We've covered a lot of ground, and I think it's important to let everything sink in. We'll be back in a moment to talk about the incredible benefits of letting go of guilt and shame, and share some final thoughts on this transformative journey of self-forgiveness. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a chance to process all that great information.
It's been a whirlwind of insights so far, but now I'm really excited to shift gears and talk about the amazing benefits of letting go of all that guilt and shame. It's like we focused on the problem, and now it's time for the solution.
Yeah, I love that analogy. And you're right, the benefits of self-forgiveness are truly life-changing. One of the most immediate benefits is this incredible feeling of freedom and relief. It's like you've been carrying around this heavy backpack for years, and finally, you can set it down.
It's like stepping out of a dark room and into the sunshine, right?
Exactly. And with that freedom comes a boost in confidence and self-esteem. Think about it. When we constantly beat ourselves up for past mistakes, it chips away at our sense of worth.
Yeah.
But when we choose self-forgiveness, it's like saying, I'm human, I make mistakes, and I'm still worthy of love and respect.
It's a powerful statement. And a real act of self-love. I can see how that would ripple out into all areas of life.
Absolutely. Our relationships improve.
Yeah.
Because we're not carrying that baggage of guilt and resentment anymore. We can be more present, more forgiving, and more capable of genuine connection with others.
It's like we can finally show up authentically without all those walls we've built up to protect ourselves.
That's such a great way to put it. And here's another amazing benefit: increased resilience. When we've learned to forgive ourselves for past mistakes, we're better equipped to handle whatever life throws our way.
Interesting.
Yeah. We develop this inner strength and belief in our ability to navigate challenges, knowing we can get through tough times and come out stronger on the other side.
So self-forgiveness is like building up our emotional immune system.
I like that. And finally, one of the most profound benefits of self-forgiveness is a deep sense of inner peace. When we release that guilt and shame, we create space for more positive emotions, love, joy, gratitude to flow into our lives.
It's like we're finally making peace with our past and embracing the present moment with open arms.
Beautifully said. So, as you can see, the benefits of self-forgiveness are truly transformative. It's not just about feeling better, it's about creating a richer, more meaningful life.
Yeah. I think it's important to remember that this is a journey, not a destination. There will be bumps in the road, moments when those feelings of guilt and shame try to creep back in.
Absolutely, but those moments don't mean we failed. They're just opportunities to practice, to recommit to self-compassion, and keep moving forward.
What's one piece of advice you'd give to someone who's struggling to forgive themselves? What's one small step they can take today?
That's a great question. I'd say start by simply acknowledging a past mistake without judgment. Just notice it, name it, and remind yourself that you're human and you're worthy of forgiveness. It could be as simple as saying to yourself, I made a mistake, and that's okay.
I love that. It's such a simple but powerful act of self-kindness, and it really highlights the importance of self-compassion in this whole process.
Exactly. Self-compassion is the key that unlocks the door to self-forgiveness. It's about treating ourselves with the same care and understanding we'd offer a loved one.
Yeah, I think sometimes we forget that we're allowed to be kind to ourselves, especially when we've made mistakes.
It's true. We often hold ourselves to much higher standards than we hold anyone else. But remember, you're worthy of your own love and forgiveness, no matter what.
And on that note, as we wrap up this deep dive into self-forgiveness, I want to leave our listener with something to ponder.
I'm all ears.
If you could go back in time and give your younger self one piece of advice about self-forgiveness, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think I'd tell my younger self to be gentler, to remember that mistakes are inevitable and that they don't define me. I'd say, don't be afraid to let go of the guilt and embrace the beauty of imperfection.
That's beautiful. And I think it's a message we all need to hear, no matter what stage of life we're in.
Absolutely. We're all works in progress, and self-forgiveness is an ongoing journey. It's about learning, growing, and choosing compassion every step of the way.
Well said. And with that, I want to thank you for joining us on this incredible deep dive into self-forgiveness.
Yeah.
We hope you've gained some valuable insights and are feeling inspired to embark on your own journey of healing and growth.
It's been a pleasure exploring this topic with you and our wonderful listener.
Thanks for listening to the Wellbeing Podcast. Take care, stay inspired, and see you next time. You know, as we've been talking about this, I keep thinking about how self-forgiveness isn't just about us as individuals. It has this ripple effect that impacts our relationships, our families, even our communities.
That's such an important point. When we learn to forgive ourselves, it creates a space for more compassion and understanding in all our interactions. Think about it. When we're carrying around a lot of guilt and shame, it can be hard to be fully present and empathetic with others.
Yeah, it's like we're so caught up in our own negative self-talk that we can't really tune into what others are going through.
Exactly. But when we release that burden of self-blame, we free up so much energy and emotional bandwidth to connect with others in a more genuine and meaningful way.
So it's like self-forgiveness is not only a gift to ourselves, but also a gift to everyone around us.
Absolutely. It's a ripple effect of kindness and compassion that spreads outward, creating a more positive and supportive environment for everyone.
And I think that's a beautiful message to end on, that self-forgiveness is not selfish. It's actually a powerful act of love and connection.
Beautifully said. And I hope our listener is feeling inspired to embrace this journey of self-forgiveness and experience all the incredible benefits it has to offer.
Me too. Remember, you're worthy of forgiveness. You're capable of change. And you have the power to create a brighter future for yourself and those around you.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure diving deep into this topic with you.
Likewise. And to our wonderful listeners, thank you so much for joining us today on the Wellbeing Podcast. Be sure to subscribe for more deep dives into fascinating topics. Until next time, take care and stay inspired.